Well, I'm not gonna lose my job, so I'm always gonna have enough money to cover at least
No,
my rent.
you... Lady, do you not remember your own f***ing words that are coming out of your mouth? I ran out of money.
But then I get paid again. And
Yeah,
then
what
I
if
pay
that...
it.
What? You don't understand. Okay, what happens when I...
So if you haven't noticed, this is Caleb Hammer. This kind of just be the theme of the video. It's mostly just his finance videos, not so much on like the personal life of people. And ignore the hair. Gotta wear my hat today. If it's annoying, let me know. I'll wear the hat for the next video for sure.
$1,000 bill hitch because you refuse to have insurance.
I guess I'll file bankruptcy.
File bankruptcy.
Yeah, and I think this is one of the things that you've been hearing a lot. It's like, oh, just file bankruptcy. I think it's thrown around a lot. Like, oh, it's just like any issues you have, just do bankruptcy. Like, what else? It's like it's free money because it just wipes out the debt and you can just start all over. But I think some people forget, like, it doesn't just mess up your credit. Like, messes up really bad, stays on your record for like X amount of years, so it's going to take a while before it gets wiped, and you probably won't be able to buy a car, if not like a house, or not. You probably still honestly apply to credit cards, but it's going to be really tough to make like any big purchases like in your life for the next couple of years. And sometimes it's your only option, even as like an adult or as a younger person, but it shouldn't be like your go-to, like, oh, it's just like an easy option. It's like not something you really want to deal with. Obviously, as well too, you got to pay for it. It's not like you just simply apply for it online and that's it. So it will cost even one thing to just apply, and that doesn't even mean you're going to get it, but it's simply just applying for the bankruptcy. And again, it's something that's like a lot of people would just, I think you hear it a lot more now that people know it's like an option. You would hear, you know, companies go for bankruptcy, or maybe you heard some family members that filed bankruptcy. But I think it's becoming a lot more of like a common option nowadays. Not that everyone's doing it, but I'm sure the numbers for people filing bankruptcy is a lot higher. Especially at a younger age where people, you know, are not always making the best financial decisions, myself included. But especially when making those car payments that she did, not having insurance, it's really risky. I don't recommend that. And also legally, I think you need insurance in all U.S. states. But it's definitely something you should always have.
Explain. Just explain.
Basically, it's a sleep partner app. So when you're sleeping, you have it on. It tracks your sleep, and depending on how you slept in the morning, you get to catch Pokemon, and they join your team.
I guess that's a really interesting take. You get to catch Pokemon based on how many sleep hours you get, which again, it's a good way to, I guess, incentivize yourself to sleep more. But it's not a good thing to go into debt either at the same time too. And I don't know the actual theme of this, of where he's going into debt exactly. It seems like an app, maybe pay into it and everything to use it, but let's continue a little more.
What?
And they help feed your Snorlax, and it's just like, yeah, I know, it's a great concept.
Is it?
Yeah. It really did help me sleep.
What, because it's forcing you to lay in bed?
Yeah, because it's like if I don't go to bed at 10:30, Pikachu's not going to be very happy with me now, is he?
Oh boy,
Yeah.
this concerns me.
And you can buy biscuits to catch.
Yeah, so I guess he's probably buying a ton of biscuits to get the good Pokemon or better Pokemon. So I'm gonna stop the video right there. I don't think you gotta keep watching it. You can watch obviously his full video. He has like full podcast on YouTube. Definitely recommend those if you want financial advice. Obviously, it's a lot slower pace, even slower than my pace. Still lasts like another 10-20 minutes, but he definitely like breaks down any guy's finances. If you haven't watched this, again, I guess it's a free advertisement for him, but I just want to cover him because I think he gives good financial advice. Definitely exaggerates, or maybe he doesn't exaggerate some of the emotions that he shows, but I think it's a good way. It definitely catches people attention, if not also their emotion as well too. And maybe it's something I need to do here if I got to bring in any viewership. I should just bring in some more emotion, because I know I've been told that I'm pretty monotone in my voice, and I've always been like that, but it's okay. But I will bring a little bit more emotion into this video just because it's a little bit better for engagement.
I currently have like a loan out on my 401k.
Oh,
And
for why? When did you do that?
I did it when I purchased my house.
You own your house?
I do.
Wait, I don't see a mortgage in here.
Yeah, there should be a mortgage. Yeah, so I bought a house back in 2022.
401k loan to buy a house?
Well, no, it wasn't always, like, it wasn't just to buy the house. It was for, like, a little bit of the down payment.
A down payment? So you borrowed your down payments from your own retirement. I don't think you understand how that f***ing worked.
Yeah, and I know some people do this. I know some people borrow against their 401k, see it as like a worthwhile investment. I know let's just say your 401k. Depends, of course, how you have it like distributed. If you have like really safe investments, like bonds, or more safer stocks, or obviously more aggressive stocks, or like tech stocks, or there's like ultra aggressive, or there's even like the 401k options where it's like depending on where you plan on retiring, it's like you pick like whatever, 2045, 2055, or whatever it might be. whatever works best for you, of course. But even if she's getting like, let's say, a return of, I don't know what the average return is for a 401k, but let's just assume it's based on S&P 500, about like 8-10%. I think you're probably better off leaving your 401k, no offense, even if your house does appreciate. Again, there's so much math that people broken down in so many different YouTube videos. Up to you if you think it's worth it. I think a smaller like 401k loan kind of makes sense, in emergencies when, I don't know, let's say your shower, the shower head burst, messes up the wall, you got to replace all that. Your insurance didn't cover it. And it's something you kind of need, and it's going to cause obviously mold issues. So it's like, if whatever, you have to take out 20k, then so be it. It's not ideal. I know some people pull out money, especially during 2020 for like renovations for the house. Not that now that they were spending a lot of time at home, but it's one option as well too. And I don't know, it's like a lot of people are against borrowing against your 401k, and I kind of agree. There's small cases where it kind of makes sense. Maybe you have a big medical issue where it's like sometimes for your house, or medical issues with your parents or family or whatever, siblings as well too. And again, it's even those you have to like justify. It's like, is it worth it? And obviously most of the time when obviously you're going to help out family, health-wise, you prefer to give up some money than not to have those people there in your life anymore. So I could definitely see that as well too.
Well, I feel like it's just paying. I thought it would be better than getting like an actual loan. I'm paying myself.
An actual loan.
Like,
yeah, but with interest.
A personal loan.
Yeah, but with interest.
But the interest goes back to you, right?
What do you mean? You think you're earning money on it?
No, I don't think I'm earning money. I think that it's just like...
I mean, I'm going to pause it right there. If you don't know what she's talking about, let's say you take out a 10k loan against your 401k. You don't just pay the 10k, you pay interest on top of that from yourself. So at least it does go back into your same account, but you're losing, let's say, that 10k. Even if you put it back in a year, you've lost almost basically, let's just say, a year of money's worth that could have obviously appreciated whatever it's invested in. So you are paying yourself interest, but you're still going to lose money in the end as well too, because it would have appreciated better just leaving it in there and not touching it entirely.
It like gets, they take like...
What is the school system like in Alabama? What do you mean? What do you think is actually happening? Please.
I don't, like, I'm paying myself back basically, but it's not like accruing any kind of
interest.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
But that interest goes back to me, right?
What the do you mean by that? How do you think you make money? How does that?
I haven't watched a full video for this. I've watched a lot of his videos, but not this one. I hope eventually they cover it through. It's kind of again what I mentioned. You do pay interest back on to yourself, but again, even though you are paying a little bit of extra money on that interest, let's say that 10k you borrowed, you're not necessarily going to get back that same return over a course of a year if you just had it untouched in there. And sure, you wouldn't be able to use that money or whatever medical expenses or whatever it might pull it out for. But yeah, it's usually not a good idea to pull out money out of your 401k typically. And I will mention this on a bit of a tangent. Make sure you also have it managed properly, because if you don't, I know most companies will kind of do it for you, and they'll do it like in really safe investments that only make like 1 or 2 or 3% per year.
So how do you guys clean?
He comes home and cleans.
Wait, hold on. Wait, I actually am a little concerned on this because he works like 80 hours a week. You just go to school. Why aren't you helping at all? I'm not saying trad wife or anything like that. I'm just saying if someone's not doing as much, why can't you help extra?
I should be doing more.
That's not what I asked. I asked why.
I just don't.
That's not an answer to the question of why.
I think she's kind of avoiding the question, or she doesn't want to answer. But I think this is not so much at financial advice, but I think with anything, of course, as well in life. Whoever you're splitting the work with, it's like you always should split it or whatever, come to a compromise. Maybe someone has a really busy schedule. Either him being 80 hours a week of work, which is a ton if you think about it. Double the work hours is almost like, let's say, doing 16-hour work days, 5 days a week. And she might be doing school. And I'm not saying her school takes less or more time. I would assume it probably takes less time, but it's definitely something. I'd still recommend you guys kind of have a compromise. Maybe one of you does 80% of the chores, one of you does 20%. You kind of just do what you enjoy. If one of you enjoys mopping and sweeping, then take care of that. If one of you prefers the bathrooms or no one prefers the bathrooms, and that might take more time too, maybe that's for the person who has a bit more time as well too.
Why don't you? Why don't you get up?
Well, because most of the time it's me and my son tearing up the house with the toys, and we
cool.
make
Pick up
forks
after yourself then, right?
Yeah, we just don't.
What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think she kind of realized there. It's like she and her son are terrorizing the home. I think that's the word they use. But regardless, it's like obviously when you're playing with a kid, it's like they're always gonna make a mess typically. But it is something it's like whatever. Besides also just like making a mess, you gotta you on your own could clean up after them. Of course, at the same time too, it's a good learning. It's a good opportunity to teach a kid how to clean up after themselves too. So, when they're at school, they're obviously not going to be around you. It's better you teach them as well how to clean up. And I'm not trying to give parental advice. That's not up to me, but just some basic advice. It's always good to teach a kid how to clean up. Maybe they know how to make a mess. Maybe also teach them how to undo the mess.
What do you want to have in terms of income on a yearly damn basis?
Enough to live.
I kind of just smiled there just because of the loud screaming. There's a lot of energy to this. Completely different to me. I don't know, it just makes me laugh. Not that I'm laughing at the person, it's more just his energy.
No, you tell me how much that is.
I don't know how much that is. That's why.
So what is the point of anything you have done to retire early if you don't?
Yeah, and I think it's a good goal. It's like, I don't think you should have, I think it's good to have also, of course, just loose goals sometimes. Or like, I want to retire early, and you don't really set an age, but it's like, you should eventually like sit down and tell yourself like, okay, this age I'll retire, or like let's say 40 or 50, whatever it might be, 60 or 62, whatever the new numbers are for retirement. But it's not just always just having the idea of I want to do this and that. It's also like planning as well as how you're going to get there and how much that is as well too. Because if you don't know how you're going to get there, it's like you won't also be able to do maybe put in enough money. It's like if he, whatever, is always putting in money into a savings account, let's just say, even if he puts in 10,000 a year into that account and it's whatever being invested as well too, it still might not be enough for his lifestyle when he retires. Because if you don't plan that out to see how much you actually need by the end, then you're not going to be able to put in as much. But sure, it's potential that he puts in so much that it, by the time he retires, it's enough, more than enough. It could even be so much that he's not even going to spend it, and he wasn't planning to whatever give it to his kids or his whatever friends or family, whatever that might be. It's definitely good to have like goals, and it's like I think if we watch this a little bit more, he kind of throws out a number.
If you don't even know what the number is,
Because if
that's dumb.
What is
If I
it?
make-
4% out of whatever is invested is what you need to live on.
No. That's not what you need to live on. I'm trying to get you that number, and
Well,
that number needs to be 4%.
So, like-
but why is that number $100,000 a year?
10 million. All right.
No,
Let's say 10 million.
a year, $100,000.
Yeah, so right here it's just kind of like it's almost like being attacked, but it's like I think it's just really just trying to get a number out of him, so at least you can like have a starting point. It's not necessarily having like an end goal, at least a starting point to show like, okay, 100K, how doable is that? And it's like, okay, maybe it's not that bad, or it is really hard. Then at least you have like a target in terms of like you could and let's just say it is 100K a year, so at least you have like a starting point. It's not we don't know how much we're going to be making per year or how much we have saved up, but it's like, okay, 100K. If we want to do bonds, let's just say that'd be about like, let's say 4 or 5%. It just depends, obviously, it's always changing, but let's just say even a fair 4%, 4.5% return. And you can do the math on based on that. Let's just say it's an even 5%, just to use more round numbers. If you want to bring in 100K, that means you'd have to have about like 2 million saved up in bonds, let's say, because that'd bring you about like each million would bring in about like 5%, being 50K each. So 2 million, if you somehow had like 2 million in the bank, that wouldn't in a sense make you 100K a year off bonds, assuming obviously that rate doesn't change, or whatever rate you can lock it in, whatever. If you were wondering, there's for government bonds at least. There's obviously like there's the 1 month, 3 month, 6 month, 12 month, 10 year, 30 year, and there's probably other ones, but those are like the big ones. Obviously, they change a lot depending on how long they are, and people obviously still try to sell them, but we won't get into that completely different topic. But again, it's like if you want to make 100K a year, 2 million in a sense in government bonds, which should be safe for life in a sense. Obviously, if the government has issues, the U.S. government has issues, you have bigger issues, and the money's not really going to matter much because the government is not really there anymore. But overall, let's just say if you want to make 100K, 2 mil. If let's say you're okay with 50K, then you only need $1 million in the bank, making let's say 5%, and you keep pulling money out of it every year. Let's just say, and you would never need to, in a sense, work if you had that much, which is something interesting to think about as well too. But that's another thing. Do you do bonds? Do you do stocks? Do you do S&P 500? Do you assume 8 to 10%? Let's just say 10%. Obviously, if you assume 10% and you want to make 100K a year, you wouldn't need 2 million. You'd only need 1 million. And that would be making 100K, let's say, for life. Assuming, again, it's a very steady 8 to 10%. Obviously, it depends on when you pull it, because S&P 500 is not always 8 to 10. It's averaged 8 to 10. So some years might be 3 or 5 or 10. But other years might be 10, 12, or 15, or exactly 10. So it's something to consider too. So it's not going to always be as, you know, as like flatline compared to like government bonds, which don't move as much. They do move as well too. Obviously, the rates as well are always moving depending on many things that are happening financially and for the government. But that's just something to consider too. And there could be other investments too. Like maybe you have some cash cow. Maybe you have an uncle. You have a really nice friend that they have their own cash cow, and all they need is cash, so they could invest it and make more money off of it, off you. And they make money too, but you make some money. Maybe the return is 25% or something like that. So if you had 1 million, you'd be making 250K a year. So you wouldn't need a million if you want to make 100K. You'd need a lot smaller amount. You need about, is it 400K? 400K, making 25% off of that. Yeah, you don't need 400K. So it just depends on how much obviously you're returning as well too. Obviously there's taxes and everything too. It's always gonna be obviously when you're making money regardless, but it's something to consider always. It's like it's a cool thing to think about that you can also retire just if you have enough money saved up in the bank account. I've definitely met someone like that in college. Their family lived off that, or their parents lived off government bonds, so it's incredibly safe. They just traveled all the time. I won't say how much they made per year, but it was a nice hefty couple $100,000 a year. I was like, wow, it's like if you do the math on that, even if it's government bonds, even at 3-4%, it's crazy. But it's good for them too, whatever they get to retire and enjoy their life, and they're still making a very nice, let's say 400K, which is, you know, about 1%, gets you into about the 1% of income for earners in the US roughly. Yeah, I think most people would be okay with that. And if you do the math on that, let's just say 5%, make 50K off each million, you would need about is that 8 million? Or am I doing my math wrong? Yeah, 8 million. If you have somehow, again, you still got to figure out how to get 8 million. But you can put 8 million in your bank account somehow, or whatever, your government bonds as well too. I mean, that's where it has to be. You could make about 400K a year for life, which would be really, really nice. Obviously, that assumes the rate is at 5% and it's constant, never changing. But that's a very nice amount of money to live off of too. And again, just something to consider too.